That's me, in Dodgers Stadium on the pitcher's mound. It's the middle of the ninth inning, and the game is tied 3-3. I'm standing next to Major League pitcher, Kenley Jansen, and judging by his expression, he isn't too thrilled that I'm there. Because if it isn't obvious already, I'm not a professional baseball player. In fact, that was the very first time I ever went to a baseball game. And I honestly can't tell you who won, because 30 seconds after this picture was taken, my sign was ripped out of my hand. I was tackled by security guards, handcuffed, and dragged off the field, all on live TV. I was then stuffed into the back of a patrol car, arrested by the LAPD, and I spent the next 4 hours being held in custody and questioned by the police. This was 1 year ago, and I was 14 years old. Now, many people ask how in the world my friends and I were able to get out to the pitcher's mound at Dodger Stadium. Well, we spent over an hour dodging security guards. Believe it or not, but we had bought the cheapest tickets in the entire stadium, so we were way, way up at the top. And we had to sneak past security guard after security guard after security guard until finally we were at the bottom level. And then we would walk down the aisle towards the field, and if we would see anyone look at us weird, we would turn around like we had simply lost our way. We waited for the exact moment when no one was looking and hopped over the railing and ran onto the field as fast as we possibly could. And no, I wasn't I wasn't there because I thought it was cool, fun, or exciting. In fact, I knew that my actions would be frowned upon by most people because viewers would see me as being disruptive or rude. After all, I was breaking the law right there in front of them and taking the consequences for all to see. But the thing is, I knew in my heart that I had something very important to say. And I knew from personal experience that most people just don't want to hear it. The reason I was in Dodger Stadium that day is because the hot dogs they serve in the concession stands are being produced by a meat supplier that uses particularly cruel methods on animals. Nobody wants animals to suffer, but still, I knew that most people in that stadium didn't want to hear about the hot dogs and the gruesome truth behind each bite. But they did hear about it, and so did the people watching the game on TV. And so did the people watching the viral internet clips of us getting handcuffed and dragged off the field. And maybe some of you here in this room don't want to hear about it either. And I understand that it's easier to look away sometimes. It's easier to plug your ears or change the channel. Because there are some things that we all prefer to pretend are not occurring in this world. Because otherwise, we'd have to consider the fact that maybe we, as a society, are a part of a process that's ugly and painful and cruel. There are many issues like this in the world, issues where the only way to get people to listen is to take bold action, sometimes even risking one's own life to influence the minds of others. The issue that I care so much about, that I was willing to get tackled by security guards live on television with a crowd both cheering and jeering, is the plight of animals, particularly farmed animals. They are flesh and bone, just like you and me, but our society treats them like machines, sometimes even products, cheap, disposable products to be manufactured in mass. The fact is, the plight of animals is something most of us try to push as far from our minds as possible. After all, the system is set up that way, ensuring that consumers never have to look an animal in the eyes and confront the fact that a sensitive, intelligent, and social creature is looking back at them. But we need to think about it, and talk about it, and accept that it's happening. I learned about the plight of animals when I was 11 years old, and I felt an urgent need to become involved in the animal rights movement. In fact, I felt so strongly about this issue that I founded my own nonprofit, Happy Hen Chicken Rescue, which is now a 40-acre farmed animal sanctuary right here on the central coast of California. Spending time with the victims of animal agriculture has changed my life. It has made me willing to sacrifice just about anything to end their suffering. I feel that when there is an important issue of injustice being ignored, whether it's animal exploitation, racism, homophobia, or whatever is important to you, that we have a moral responsibility to do something about it. We have a responsibility to put it into the forefront of everyone's minds. Whatever cause is important to you isn't going to progress or win without nonviolent, consistent, and bold acts of protest. In order to create change, you need a movement. Yes, one person can make a difference, absolutely. But thousands of people can change the world. So next you might ask, how would one inspire a movement? Well, I believe it's through acts of courage and sacrifice. And I know that might sound like a corny line out of a military movie, but seriously, acts of courage and sacrifice make sympathizers wonder, why am I not out there too? And you know what? They might just show up to your next event. And that is why I have taken actions that many would consider drastic. I've had people tell me to give up. I've even been assaulted and threatened by members of the opposition. Yes, it's scary and daunting. After all, I am trying to fight an industry that spends billions trying to make sure that people like us feel disconnected from the flesh on our plates. There are 56 billion land animals being killed every single year for food. 56 billion worldwide, and so few of us are talking about it. It is time to take direct action. I like to think of myself and other animal rights activists as following in the footsteps of people like Emmeline Pankhurst, Rosa Parks, and Martin Luther King Jr. They all succeeded by taking bold actions that, like mine, many considered extreme at the time, but in retrospect seem reasonable and necessary. But like all hard work, sometimes things don't go the way you planned. I've certainly made a fool of myself during protests. I've been too, let's say, forceful while handing out vegan literature. One man said he couldn't take the leaflet, that he didn't have time, and I blocked him in his path and insisted he take it. He didn't. I've organized protests poorly too. One time I organized a Sunday protest at a grocery store that's closed on Sundays. It was awkward explaining that to my fellow activists, to say the least. But I've learned a lot. And every day I push myself to become the most effective activist I can be, because we only get one life, and so we must use our time efficiently as to make the greatest difference possible. I have held so many animals in my arms as they have died, and I feel that I owe them that, if nothing else. I recently spoke to the Los Angeles Animal Services Commissioners about ending the religious ritual slaughter of chickens. The night before this photo was taken, I protested the rituals and ended up getting sprayed with mace. There were dozens of police officers there, standing in military form. After they left, and I could finally walk around without the fear of being arrested, I found buckets of blood and dirtied white feathers. In this ritual, the chickens are swung around by their wings, their throats are cut, and they bleed out. Their dead bodies are then stuffed into trash bags. The images haunt me to this day, and the ritual has yet to be banned. And I continue to wonder, what kind of world do we live in, where activists, like me, are treated like criminals, while animal abusers get away with so much? But the thing is, when most people are finally educated and consider what is happening to animals, they will help bring about change. I am confident in that. That is why I feel activism is generally successful. We live in a society that tells us, from the moment we are born, to be kind, When someone is being hurt, most of us want to help them. That is why I believe if we can get the issue of animal rights onto the table and help people truly see animal agriculture for what it is, we can and we will ban the consumption of meat, dairy, and eggs and give animals the rights that they deserve. For example, my friends in Berkeley rallied, petitioned, and marched, demanding an end to the sale of fur. They were loud, and they used dramatic visuals, like fake blood. But they grabbed people's attention, and they started important conversations. And they won. They successfully banned the sale of fur in the city of Berkeley. Now, banning fur in one city may not seem like a big deal, but in reality, it was a huge victory. It will pave the way for cities around the world to do the same thing. And possibly even more importantly, it provided the movement with an inspiring victory. Just like rescuing one animal from a farm may seem minor in the grand scheme of things, it can actually give hope to thousands. And on that note, I want to tell you all one last story. This is Sleepy, a hen I rescued from an egg farm. When we saved her, she was unconscious. For 2 weeks, she was in a coma. We didn't think Sleepy was going to make it, but she did. After being caged for 2 years, she finally got to run around in the sunshine, spread her wings, socialize, and explore. And although I am so glad that she got to spend the last 2 years of her life at my sanctuary, she still deserved so much better. And you may say that she was just a chicken, that her life didn't have much meaning and value beyond a dollar sign. But it did. We know from scientific studies and observation that chickens feel fear, pain, love, and contentment. They desire peace and happiness, just like we do. If you have ever spent time with a chicken, then you've probably seen this for yourself. It is individuals like Sleepy who I think about when I protest at grocery stores and restaurants. It is their stories that keep me on my feet. And yes, it's driven me to take actions that some of you might even roll your eyes at. But let's just note that because of these actions, I was invited to speak here, and I just got to educate all of you about animal rights for 10 minutes. So that's something. But in all seriousness, if you take one thing away from this talk, I hope you take away courage. Courage to do what's right, no matter what others will think of you. If there is an injustice that you feel must end, then don't sit at home and watch others attempt to end it for you. Get out there, be brave, take a bold action. If we all do this, we can create a kind and just world. Thank you.